Hey, today I'm going to talk about Carrie. Which version of Carrie? Good question. I'm going to talk about the 1976 version, the 2002 version, and the 2013 version. Also, I'm going to talk about the 1988 Broadway musical called Carrie the Musical, as well as the 2018 episode of Riverdale from Season 2, Episode 18, entitled Chapter 31, A Night to Remember. The only Carrie-related things I'm not going to talk about are the sequel to the 1976 version that came out in 1999, entitled The Rage, Carrie 2. I'm also not going to talk about the book because I didn't read the book. What have I done? What have I done? First up is the 1976 version of Carrie, starring Sissy Spacek. It also features a very, very young John Travolta. If you're unfamiliar with the premise of Carrie, it's about this high school girl who's raised by an overly religious mother who's super controlling. She doesn't know what her period is, and when she first gets her period, she freaks out, and then everyone just makes fun of her for that fact. Prom's also happening, and stuff happens with that. First off, I love the basic story. All three versions of them, the base story is terrific. The different levels of quality definitely vary, with this one very clearly being the best version. I will talk about how the other versions do a few things a little better, but 99%, this is definitely the best one. Sissy Spacek gives an incredible performance. You really buy her as this like fragile little girl who's like slowly gaining her confidence as she's getting telekinetic abilities. The mom is the best in this one, that's for sure. She gives such an over-the-top performance that just like, it's so ridiculous, but it being ridiculous is what makes it scary because it's real. Because there are people who are just as insane as the mom in this. To just realize that fact makes her so incredibly intimidating. While still talking about the mom, I also really loved when she yelled at Carrie a couple times and like dragged her to the closet. She would pull Carrie by the hair, just like kicking and screaming like she was a little child. But she's supposed to be 18 in this. So she obviously should be strong enough to take on her mom. It shows so much about her character that she lets her mom literally drag her by her hair. I also crazy love the teacher. That's somehow the one character's name I don't have memorized. The teacher in this one is my favorite version. And that's because, so like the movie, the start of the movie is something else. So it starts off as essentially just being erotica. It's almost a softcore porn, and I'm like, what the hell am I watching right now? And that was sort of done in juxtaposition of once Carrie gets that first period, it turns into a horror movie, and it's scary. And I'm like, I know everything that's about to happen, but like, I'm still terrified right now. It's insane. And then like all the girls start throwing tampons and pads at her and just being like ridiculous and over the top. And I'm like, this is so insane. This is like the most ridiculous over the top thing I've ever seen. What is happening right now? And then the teacher comes in and saves Carrie, and it's great. And I'm like, I love you, teacher. And then later, the teacher is yelling at all of the girls who participated in this. And she pretty much verbatim says what I said. She was like, that was the most ridiculous bullshit I have ever seen. How are you, like, how? What are you doing? You're so dumb. What? I'm just like clapping along. I'm like, yeah, you tell these dumb kids off. That was great. I love you so much, teacher. And just like the way the teacher just protected Carrie throughout the entire story, I was loving every second of it. I'm like, I wish all the outcasts and loners had a teacher like her to look out for them. That's not the case, but damn it, I wish it was the case because she is amazing. I love her so much. What's so great too with the story is like when Sue, one of the girls who participated in the pelting, feels bad and tries to make amends with Carrie, the teacher is just so overly cautious with her. Like she doesn't believe that Sue is willing to change, that she thinks this is just going to be another prank, another setup, which is the absolute right thing for the teacher to think. Like I'm like that. I'm like, I wasn't entirely convinced against which way Sue actually was until the end of the movie. That's really good writing. I really love Sue's story overall. She's almost like a second lead character, I would say. She goes on such a great arc. She goes from like just going along with the crowd, yelling "plug it up" at Carrie as she's bleeding everywhere, and then she recognizes that she made a terrible mistake and then tries to change and tries to change, and by the end, I would say successfully becomes a better person. And it's like that's just a great arc and a great story. Carrie has a great arc too, because I was almost expecting like the mom to just be overbearing the entire time and Carrie just like is powerless the entire time. But Carrie slowly gets more and more stronger, and it's so interesting to see like her mom attempt to be a strong, overpowering person, but Carrie just be like holding her own against it. And it's so good. It's so interesting too, because like to really break down the meaning of this movie, I don't really know what the meaning of this movie is. You want Carrie to achieve her goal. You want Carrie to come out of her shell and just be able to fit in with everyone else and just kind of, you know, not stand out. She just wants to blend into the crowd. She just wants to experience life like everyone else. And she slowly gets to do that. And it's such a powerful moment, like her at prom. And like in the first one, there's a part where like the camera's spinning and it's kind of ridiculous, but it's also kind of sweet because it's like, it's Carrie's finally normal, she's regular, it's all good, and you're happy, and it's great. But then, of course, there's the bloodbath thing that happens, and everything goes to hell, and Carrie kills a bunch of people, which is a fantastic ending. But with that kind of an ending, it almost makes it seem like the mom was technically correct, that everything went to hell when she tried to be a normal person. I don't think you're supposed to think that. It's a horror movie, it's supposed to have a horror ending. I think it's more so still about everything up until that moment, and then just, you know, has a very fun, great ending. After like she gets covered in blood, I didn't know what was going to happen. I knew most of the beats from this movie, and even with that still, I still thoroughly enjoyed it. But I didn't know what happened after she got covered in blood. And apparently the very, very ending is changed from the book, and actually all three movies have a different ending. So yeah, I think that's enough on Carrie 1976. If you're gonna watch one Carrie movie, make it this one. It's the best by far, and it's really good, really spooky, and just it's all around terrific. You're in for a good time. The next up is the 2002 version of Carrie. This is a TV movie, and you can definitely feel that it is a TV movie. It had such a low budget. The picture quality made it look like it was a porn parody. So like, I kept just expecting people to start having sex at random points. It didn't really happen, but it was all kinds of bad. I went into this with very low expectations, and it didn't quite meet them. I wouldn't say I was pleasantly surprised by this movie, because it wasn't a pleasant experience, but it wasn't the worst thing. Because like I said before, the baseline story of Carrie is terrific, and it's just kind of what the filmmakers want to do with it. This one was definitely a chore to get through. Obviously, the filmmakers wanted to make this movie different from the classic 1976 version, and so they made changes. And every choice that they made was a wrong choice. Like, it was blatantly clear that everything they were doing was wrong. Save for two things. There are two things that I actually really, really like about this movie, I think does better than the other two versions. And those are, I think the character design of Carrie in this one is the best. She's very meek and small, like Sissy Spacek was in the first one, but her posture and specifically her hair just looked terrible. And her clothes look bad, and it fit the character so perfectly. She just looked the part of Carrie more than Sissy Spacek did. Sissy Spacek gave a great performance, but she's, you know, still gorgeous and adorable, and just, you can't not love her. Whereas here, this actress, though yes, pretty, I would say she transformed herself more into the outcast loser that is Carrie. And then the other thing that I think was better here than the other two movies is, I think, my favorite scene in the story. So Sue's boyfriend, Tommy, takes Carrie to the prom. And in two versions, they're in a limo, and in one version, they're in a car. I like the car the best. But in this version, it's a limo. So I sit in the back of the limo, and like they pull up to prom, and they're about to get out, and she's like, hey, can we wait a minute? I need a minute. And obviously, all three versions do it, But in here, it just works the best. I love this scene just because I can relate to it so much. There are so many times throughout my life I'm just like, hey, hold on one second. I need, you know, a moment to prepare myself for whatever it is we're about to do. And I think all three versions do a good job, but there's just something about the way they did it here. It was a little bit longer and it wrapped up better. Just like the way that Tommy kind of grew into the moment. Tommy's story is so great too, because he doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want to take the weirdo to prom, but he cares for his girlfriend a lot and she wants him to do it. And then like, he doesn't want to do it, but he's lying to Carrie that he wants to do it. She's so adamant that she knows he doesn't want to do it. And he's like, no, I want to do this. And then eventually he just starts believing the lie and it becomes real. And then as he's like watching Carrie enjoy this moment of finally being a normal person, he just kind of like, he gets wrapped up in it and it all builds up to that kiss. And I love the kiss. I think the kiss works. It is a little strange that, you know, he's dating someone else and he kisses Carrie. But like I said, it's just like being swept away. He's just like, there's magic happening right now. It's almost overwhelming and he has to kiss her, and it's such a great moment. That happens a little bit later. I got a little ahead of myself. So back to the car part. So the car part all overall was great. And then I think they also extended that a little bit into the prom as well, because like the beginning sequence of all the proms is a little bit awkward. Either the music isn't great or I don't know, they all feel weird except for this one. Just the beginning though. They do a good job of introducing us to prom without it being too strange. But those are the only good things about this movie. This movie is really, really bad. The acting is terrible. The dialogue is awful. They included a part from the book that's not in the other adaptations, and that's the police interrogation framing device, and it does not work well. It did not add anything to the story except for like one time it did. The ending they did here was interesting and kind of the most happy ending, and I think also the most close to the book. But I don't know if the story really needs a happy ending. I didn't hate this movie because it's hard to hate baseline Carrie, but I definitely do not recommend this version of Carrie. No. And lastly is the 2013 version of Carrie. I went into this one with very low expectations and was really surprised. I would definitely say pleasantly surprised by this one. It honestly was a good movie, and I would say a good adaptation as well. It still does not match the quality of the original. There's no beating that, but they do a lot of things right here. Unlike the 2002 version, when they made changes from the 1967 version, they were actually good changes for the most part. Not every single time, but a lot of times they did good stuff. This was definitely the prettiest of the three movies. It also had the best special effects, obviously, because you know it's the newest. And also, it was incredibly engaging, which is so surprising considering this is the third time I've watched this story played out. But like, I was still enthralled the entire time. That really says a lot about the quality of this movie. I will also say that it definitely has the best blood drop scene, like just the effect of it going down and covering Carrie. It looks good, but don't get me wrong, this movie definitely has its faults. For instance, one of the most brilliant choices this movie made was casting Judy Greer as the teacher. Like, yeah, this movie's 8 years old, but like, whoever made that decision needs to get a raise now, because Judy Greer is a treasure and that part is made for her. But then someone else made the poor choice of not having the teacher do all the amazing things that she does. And to just downplay her importance in general is just, why? And it's Judy Greer! Who doesn't love Judy Greer? You don't have a soul if you don't love Judy Greer. I stand by that statement. Also, Julianne Moore plays the mom. Like I said, the first one, the mom went super over the top and that was great and super intimidating. And then the second one, the mom just played it very small and almost sympathetic, so that she wasn't even a villain. She definitely was a bad guy, but she played it like she wasn't a bad guy, and it didn't work. And then this one, Julianne Moore she was more. She definitely had some moments, but she never really reached the levels that she needed to. And I can understand not wanting to copy what another actor did, but it's just over the top, just works for this character. So it's disappointing. I was also gonna say though, because it's the most modern of the three movies, it's also the easiest for me to enjoy, because like, you know, I wasn't alive in the 70s, so it's an acquired taste. And in the early 2000s, I wasn't watching adult movies, I was watching Disney Channel movies. But in 2013, I was an adult. I was watching grown-up movies. So like, yeah, vibed with this movie's film language. I get it. But then like another part that they didn't really do great was that like the movie's just not scary. I mean, like, yeah, again, this is the third time I've seen this story, but like, it's just, there are no spooks in it, and like, this movie's supposed to be creepy, scary and stuff, and it just wasn't. That all being said, it's just such a good follow-up to the original. Like, if you just really vibed with the original and just want to get more Carrie content, like, this is a good continuation of it. You will not be in for a bad time. That is for sure. Unlike the 2002 version, if you watch that one, you are in for a very, very bad time. And before I wrap up this very long episode, I want to briefly talk about the 1988 Broadway musical. I don't think there's a film version of the musical, but I did listen to the entire soundtrack. Immediately I was like, what the hell is this? Because like, I would kind of call it the Disney-fied version of Carrie. The writers of those songs completely missed what this story is about, because all the music is just like, yeah, high school stuff, yeah, high school stuff. And like, yeah, sure, there's high school stuff in this movie, but like, it's not like that. I think Carrie's first big song is how she like wants everyone to know her name. And I'm like, that's not Carrie's goal. Carrie doesn't want to be famous or popular or anything. She just wants to be a part of the group, which doesn't mean the popular group. She just wants to be a regular person. She doesn't want to be the weird loser outcast religious freak person. She just wants to be normal. I don't know what they were thinking writing what they wrote. Also, just like the tone of the songs is so upbeat and fun. It's somehow almost like the writers had a time machine, went into the future, saw High School Musical and was like, that's cool, and then went back in time and wrote a Broadway musical that's the exact same as that, except with like 3 swear words. Like, none of it works. And apparently, it is like one of, if not the biggest flops in Broadway history. And I'm like, good, because they messed up this story so bad. It was, ugh. There were a couple songs that were kind of okay, but I think it was just in context with the rest of them. Like, if I pulled out those songs that I was like, all right, this is kind of okay, and just listened to them on their own with none of the other music around it, I'd be like, this is bad. What's happening right now? So yeah, I don't recommend listening to this. But the musical is what brings me to Riverdale. They made an episode that featured several of the songs from Carrie the musical, because in their high school they're putting on Carrie the musical. I haven't seen any of the show except for that episode. It's just CW trash. That's all I really knew about it going into it. It's kind of less than what I expected, just because I thought they were gonna maybe adapt the story, but instead they really didn't. It was just kind of the songs intercut with the regular drama that they're doing. I will say though, that is a ridiculously attractive cast, like men and women. They're stupidly attractive. Very bad actors though. Awful writing. They did dance well though. I'll give them that. And now for the end of the video. So the rankings today are the 1976 version is sitting at number 18 in the really liked category. It's just so good, and I love it so much, and I can't wait to watch it again, and I'm probably going to read the book because of how good this freaking movie is. And then What seems like a long ways down, but actually isn't that far away, is the 2013 version, sitting at number 68 in the Quite Like section. Like I said, I enjoyed it a ton. It's a pretty good movie. And then rightfully so, bringing up the rear is the 2002 version, sitting at 138 in the meh category. Like I said, the base story, you can't not like it. It's a good story. And they did do a couple things good, so I didn't hate it. And this is out of a total of 167 old movies so far this year, and out of a grand total of 195 movies so far this year. If I were to rank the musical and Riverdale, I would without a doubt put the musical in the didn't liked category. That was trash. And then I'd probably put the Riverdale episode in the meh category. It's in that section of meh where it should have gone into the didn't liked category, but it didn't because there are a lot of attractive people in there. I hope you like this mega episode all about Carrie. I didn't expect this one to go so long, but then it did. And again, I didn't even talk about everything Carrie. I didn't talk about the book, and I didn't talk about the sequel. So get ready for that one day, maybe. I love that she made her dress. That was so badass. And then like when she got to prom and all of the people were like, dude, I love your dress. And like she found people who actually care about her. That was so cool. I also love the gay friend. Like the Tommy has a friend that's definitely super into him. And the musical kind of makes jokes about that. But like, it's great. I also love how in the 2013 version, the mom is quoting a Bible verse at the daughter, and at Carrie, and in that version, Carrie's like, that's not even in the Bible because it's not in the Bible. Though in the 76 version, she's not actually holding the Bible. She's holding some other book, which I'm pretty sure, I don't know what it is, but like there are other books that are about Bible stuff. I don't know. It's just so good. I could talk about this movie for so much more. It's so good. Her powers were just badass, and I loved the pacing. The pacing is what was so wrong with the 2002 version. The pacing was just all over the place. Like they needed to cut so much stuff from that movie just to make it needed to flow so much faster. Like her period. Oh, that's a bad joke. Oh my God, what am I doing? I need to stop talking. Stop talking, Charlie. Go do something else. Such a good story.